is a busy week ahead for the markets as the month of November comes to an end. On Tuesday, the spotlight will be on Fed Vice Chairman Rich Clarida as he speaks in New York City. On Wednesday, Fed Chair Jerome Powell speaks at the Economic Club of New York. And on Thursday, we've got the Fed minutes, and we kick off the G20 meeting in Argentina, where Trump is expected to meet with Chinese President Xi. What can we expect, and how do you position yourself? Let's bring in Karen Kavanaugh, the Senior Market Strategist with Voya Investment Management, and Doug Butler, Portfolio Manager and Senior VP with Rockland Trust. Great to have you both. Karen, you think that we are still poised for a Santa Claus rally, but what has to happen, in your view, in order for Santa to actually come to Wall Street? I mean, in terms of G20, do we need some sort of breakthrough there? Do we need the Fed to sort of back off on future hikes? What do you see?
Well, I don't think that we're going to see a lot of clarity, but I think that well, first of all, we just have a little bit of uncertainty regarding Brexit. We could check that off the list. But I think the market is just looking for just some kind of signs that Powell is willing to be a little bit more dovish, and that President Trump and President Xi are willing to negotiate. So all we need is a little bit of some signs of non-uncertainty for the market to really move forward, because we really are a little bit oversold. So I think that as long as we see some definitive signs that things are going in the right direction, investors will take heart.
And what kind of Santa Claus rally are you thinking, Karen?
Look at today, we're up 1%. I think we can do 5% by the end of the year and make up a little bit of the lost ground. I mean, look at the PE is at 15 times earnings, and earnings, sure, they're going to be a little bit lighter next year, but we're coming off a very high bar, and we're still looking around 8% earnings growth in 2019. So as long as earnings are growing, that's the fundamental indicator of the market. Sure, there are some soft signs in the economy, but the economy and market are not always the same thing. I think the economy will still be okay, but I think that investors need to look at those earnings, and as long as those earnings are growing, that's a definite positive for the market.
Doug, let me ask you a couple of questions about where you see the market going, but also, let's say earlier in the year, I or my mutual funds harvested some capital gains. I've got a month now to decide what I want to do. Is this a better time, if I've got some gains on which I'm going to have to pay tax, to offset those gains with some sales of losing securities, or is it time to buy in?
I think it's definitely time to take a look at your tax strategy and really harvest the losses, but harvest them in a smart way. And essentially at Rockland Trust, we a lot of times will harvest losses, but reinvest the securities in a similar investment, being careful to avoid any wash sale rules. But I think that one of the upsides of a drawdown in the markets over the last month and a half or so has been that it has created these tax opportunities, and really people need to figure out, how to minimize their tax bill for next year.
In a market environment like this, Doug, there are a lot of people who, I like the term harvest losses. It's so euphemistic. It makes it sound so pleasant, when in actuality it's quite painful. But, in the course of harvesting these losses into the final month of the year, do you see that as adding more pressure to the markets to the downside?
It could in some names. You certainly will see some names, some of the bigger, more liquid names you won't see it with. But some, GE, I can't envision that anybody still holds GE at a gain. They may have bought it back in March of '09 and have it at a gain. But GE is a prime candidate for harvesting losses now, and that is widely available in a lot of client portfolios, and thankfully not in ours. So that we like harvesting again.
He hastens to add.
All right, we're going to leave it there, guys. Thank you very much. Karen Kavanaugh, Voya Investment Management, Doug Butler of Rockland Trust.